upstairs, there was some hysterical things going on, some screaming from a young woman that happened to be Mr. Arnold's wife, the general's wife, Peggy Shippen. And she was just fraught, absolutely beside herself. So Dr. Eustis was called in to care for her. And, well, I don't know that we should give a traitor much more conversation at this location. Mr. Arnold got what he was due, which was no respect at all from either side, dare I say it. Who I feel most badly for is His Excellency, our first President, General George Washington. He was so disappointed in that man. He respected, as I recall, John Andre more than he did General Arnold, because at least John Andre did his job as a British general, whereas Benedict Arnold did not. In fact, I recall he was in Japan at the time when Major Andre was captured. He was at the DeWitt House, I believe, and he was so distraught he closed the shutters and would not come out. They captured Major Andre, they tried him, not a couple of blocks down the road, walked him less than a quarter of a mile to a tree and hung him there. And General Washington could not bear it. He shut himself inside and said, "I will not come out. It is more injurious to me what Arnold did than what Andre did." At least Andre was honorable, and Arnold was not. As we move through the Revolution, you see Dr. Eustis, as I recall, is gaining more and more medical experience. So we keep thinking that he's going to maintain that as his course. He wanted a post here in Boston, but he admitted that his own health was too tentative to take a post at a particular hospital here. And when he came back and said he was better, they didn't accept him. So he had to hang a sign out for himself and do his own medical practice from there. But it turns out that his true calling was in statesmanship. A stronger polemicist I do not know. And that's why I think he has a future. Past the Madison administration, I do not know what his future holds, but I know that he will do great things for this country. Currently, things in the Netherlands are not too active, so hopefully things are at peace and we can enjoy some good times here, which allows Mrs. Madison and I to travel a bit and enjoy the company of our northern citizens. Is there anything specific you would like to ask me about? I do have some things that I could share if you don't.
Can you say something about your upbringing, your childhood?
Oh yes, I would be proud to tell you about my family, sir. James, my father, was the most caring of men. It's not a proud thing for me to say, but I was rather fragile as a child. In fact, I'm quite surprised that I'm standing here in front of you today. Well, let's see if I can stand. Yes, I can stand. Sometimes better to sit. But I did take a carriage here today, and I am able to ride horseback, and I was able to go out on the field of battle during the War of 1812 because of the things that my family cared about, was that my health was bolstered. So my father said to me when I was tutored by 2 different tutors down in Virginia, that we're not going to send you, Jemmy, to the College of William and Mary. You might get the yellow fever. We're going to send you up north to the College of New Jersey, where the air is fresh, and you can learn under John Witherspoon, one great Scottish Enlightenment reverend and philosopher. So I learned there things from David Hume and Adam Smith and Francis Hutcheson, all the great Scottish Enlightenment philosophers, which was popular at the time and then carried over, I believe, into the way we think today. Some of its elements, I think, were written into the Constitution since I was so strongly affected by my college education in New Jersey. And so my family was very tight-knit. We still care for each other. We still take care of my mother at Montpelier, and Mrs. Madison does a fine job of that. So I have everything to thank about my upbringing. I had a very, very good one. Perhaps a bit about my administration. I wanted to thank you. I can't say for sure, but I know most of you voted for me in the second election. So thank you for your vote, if that was the case. 5 of the 6 New England states were supportive of the Republican point of view. It was only Connecticut, and I believe that's where that doctor is from, that didn't support us in the second administration. You know, I have been described as certain things that are not that laudable, except that I'm a smart man, perhaps. I could have a good intellect. I have good decision making. I have good judgment. I have good diplomatic skills. And of course, I gathered that as President Jefferson's Secretary of State over the course of his 2 terms. But when people question my ability to run the executive office, I am not one to brag, but I am going to proffer that it is simply because my methods are a bit different, you see. For example, I don't hold cabinet meetings. I see my cabinet officers individually. If I am dealing with matters of a national importance, would I not want the counsel of the most important people in my inner circle? So I will visit my cabinet members on an individual basis, find out what it is that they feel is important and prudent for the necessary actions to be taken, give pause, think clearly through the issues, and then come to a decision. But when I make that decision, I say to you that it is going to be very difficult for you to change my course. I have been called everything from a little withered apple John to the most unsociable creature on this God-given earth to a contemptible little blackguard. But I say to you, do you think Mrs. Madison, the vivacious woman that I know so well, would have married me, little Jemmy Madison, if I was those things? I would hope not. You see, when I am in the company of friends such as I see here before me in our northern states and know that I have your support and love, another side of me comes out. I do have a wit, I do have a sense of humor, but I do take a serious attitude when it comes to the public nature of things in my public appearance. If you are in private company with me, I will show a different side, which I'm sharing with you a bit today. I also want to make sure that if you have a chance to travel south to the Virginia state, please do stop by. Mrs. Madison and I summer at Montpelier, but we also have an active social life in the federal city. Do you know about, has anybody been to Virginia to see Washington City lately? Have you been to one of our Wednesday evening drawing rooms? Oh, you must. You must come to the Wednesday evening drawing rooms. What you will see when you knock on the door is a plume rising above everyone else. And you may think that it's Mrs. Madison's macaw. Nay, it's Mrs. Madison herself. She wears that plume atop a turban that she makes it a habit to wear. And she is not a small woman. So usually it is a beacon around the room from which you can find your bearings. And if you want to find me, you simply need to find the beacon. And when you find the beacon, you say, well, where is Mr. Madison? And she will take you right to me. Well, I'm likely standing next to a wall talking to someone about some intellectual matter of some kind, because I'm in public. You'll be served great food, great wine, great libations. And if you are stuck for conversation, Mrs. Madison is a great conversation starter. You'll notice that she carries a book around. It's Don Quixote, her favorite story. That is an icebreaker, I think, that will create conversation with anyone that may be shy. So I encourage one and all to come to what we call actually are the crushes, because the room is so filled with people that it's so difficult to move around. They're actually crushed together. But we have them every Wednesday, and it's a chance for people of all political persuasions to come and mix. And because of the Republican virtue that I espouse, I believe that mixture of opinions must exist, yes?
Oh, no,
Please, do as you please, sir. My name is James Madison, and I am from Orange County, and I am a human being just like you. I was speaking at, another thing that I might want to speak about is, well, the Constitution. I'm quite proud of the document because we would not be here in the matter that we are without it, right? And with the addition of the Bill of Rights, we have our individual rights taken care of. And as the country evolves and changes and I exit my presidency with the upcoming term, we will probably see some more bills added as time goes. Did I just hear something?
Yes. It was a bell.
It was a bell. Well, we just were getting started, weren't we?
Yes.
I am so sorry that our time has been cut short, but I do believe we will have a little additional time together once the sessions are over. And I must say that your next visit with Dr. Franklin will probably be quite amusing. So with that, ladies and gentlemen,
Thank you, sir.
I bid you adieu.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
It was a great pleasure.
Yes.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you. Fascinating.
Thank you
so much. Thank you for this.
Thank you, sir.
Nice to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you, sir.
You're
done.
Dr. Franklin likes to talk. If we could line up right
I'm really sorry I didn't get that right off.
Doesn't matter.
But you'll at least you'll have this one.
Come. Right in here.
James Madison, sir, from Orange County.
Peter Tom from Boston.
Pleasure to meet you, sir.
Thank you so much.
James Madison from Orange County. Pleasure to meet you, sir.
Very soon.
Madam, pleasure to meet you. Is it just the three of you?
No.
No.
All right. I have someone else to greet. James Madison from Orange County, sir. I would like the pleasure of John Bennett. Is more, is all mine, sir. Please, take a seat. If you'll excuse me, my mouth is a bit parched. We'll see what kind of spirit Boston serves up.
How's the garage?
Quite good.
Worth the travel, sir?
Pardon?
Worth the travel?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, if the opportunity presented itself, I dare say that I would stay longer. So we had the pleasure of coming to Boston, which I've never been to before. I don't often travel outside of my own Virginia. But there was 3 times that I can recall coming to the northern states, but never coming east into this most revolutionary city. Have any of you traveled to Virginia
Yes.
recently?
Last fall I was in Alexandria, but that's about as far as I can.
Uh-huh. Well, if it's the summertime, hello, madam. Welcome. Please come in. James Madison from Orange County, madam. Deborah, pleasure to meet you. Have a seat. We were just discussing travels, north and south. And I had mentioned that this was my first trip to Boston. And Mrs. Madison is here with me. And she's conversing with Madame Eustis. They have had much correspondence by letter, but have never been in person with each other. So this is a wonderful house. Unfortunately, Mr. Eustis is in the Netherlands right now as our minister plenipotentiary, but I do think that when he returns, we will have great things to expect from Mr. Eustis. I have gotten to know him as a member of my administration, and I know some things about his past. But before we jump ahead, we'll continue with your trip to Alexandria. Was it pleasant? Did you have good weather?
Very good weather, yes. My sister happened to live there, so I was visiting her. And it is a very fine old city, and many interesting buildings, and a canal, I believe they're building now, to Georgetown, I think.
Wonderful. Well, I'm from more of the Piedmont area, but I do, you know, I have come to the Tidewater area to come to the federal city in Washington and up to Philadelphia during my times in politics. But the northern states were a journey for me. I started out my life, and I can say this because I am in front of friendly company, I see, that my constitution was not really so strong as a youth. In fact, I'm quite alarmed, not alarmed, maybe enthused, maybe joyful that I am here today. I was so sick as a youth that I didn't think I would make it past 20. But here I am in 18 and 16, and still going. And I know one person that makes me youthful, and that would be my wife, Mrs. Madison. 17 years my junior. Well, anyway, I can remember 3 occasions coming north, going all the way almost to the Canadian border, Lake Champlain. The first was in 1784. I came with the Marquis de Lafayette out to Fort Stanwix when the signing of the treaty was going on there. And of course the Marquis is a great traveling partner. The next year, I came with James Monroe. We talked with His Excellency, General Washington, and he suggested that we might come to New York, since it was, as we called it, the breadbasket of the American Revolution. We supplied so much wheat to our Continental Army that perhaps we might find some fertile soil there in which to buy property. So Mr. Monroe and I went up and found around 900 acres, as I recall, and purchased it. Never came and visited it again, though. 1791, however, Mr. Jefferson and I traveled north again, all the way up to Lake Champlain. He's quite a fisherman, you know. And he compared the fish out of Lake George to that of Lake Champlain, and for some reason, I know not what, he thought the fish in Lake Champlain were much superior. We came under the guise of a botany trip, which of course we did. You know, Mr. Jefferson loves all manner of botany and living and natural things, what with the Lewis and Clark expedition and the museum pieces that he has and the inventions that he has made himself. But we also wanted to find out what the tenor of our people's thinking was in the year of 1791. So those were my 3 forays into the upper states. So I'd never come east here to Boston, but I must say it is a privilege because this is where the seeds of our revolution began. And thereby I might then segue into a bit about our Mr. Eustis, yes. Politics, I don't think, was his first calling. He was a doctor, you may know, a surgeon in the American Revolution under the tutelage of Dr. Joseph Warren. And he was taking care of Dr. Warren's patients because Dr. Warren trusted him. When the fighting broke out at Lexington and Concord, both were there to take care of the wounded. And then a couple of months later, when the action played out at Bunker Hill, which I believe actually was on a different hill, called Breed's Hill. Yes, thank you, Madam.
My pleasure, sir.
Not Bunker Hill, but Breed's Hill. And that action, of course, Dr. Warren fell there. And we lost a great patriot. And Dr. Warren, I am quite sure that he would have gone on to an illustrious career if he had lived. So Mr. Eustis then continued on with quite a wartime curriculum vitae, so to speak. He really lasted throughout the entire war. Let's see, in 76 and 77, and he was in New York, he was in New Jersey, and he was part of an artillery unit that served as a surgeon, and served out the war really at a loyalist house at Beverly Robinson across the Hudson River, and happened to treat Peggy Shippen, that dastardly General Arnold's wife, at the time that he flew the premises of West Point upon General Washington's arrival, to flee to the Vulcan in the middle of the Hudson because he had been drawn to the other side. And in a fit of hysteria, no one could calm her down, not even General Washington himself. So Mr. Eustis was called in to try and calm her down. Then let me think. he was voted into the Society of the Cincinnati, and I know he's very proud of that moniker. In fact, he's served as its vice president until the year of 1810. In 1786, do you recall that, some of you might not be old enough, but there was a rebellion out in your western parts, Springfield. And some of the men that were out in the farms, in the wilderness, were being taxed so heavily that their farms were being taken, and they couldn't pay the taxes. So Daniel Shays decided that he was going to do something about it. He gathered a force of men to attack the armory in Springfield. Well, the militia was called out, reluctantly, but finally, because of private citizens, mind you, we got a force together to go and intercept the insurgency. And Mr. Eustis accompanied Benjamin Lincoln, I believe it was. General Benjamin Lincoln led the militia in order to stop that insurgency. So he served in that capacity again, in case anyone was wounded. Then, of course, he had a time here in the Massachusetts General Court. And then he moved on into the United States House of Representatives when I was Secretary of State under President Jefferson, so I got to know him there as well. Mr. Eustis is charming. He's urbane, he's very sensible, and an expert polemicist, I would think. So I see great things for Mr. Eustis's future. I do not know what it holds, but when he returns from the Netherlands and I exit my presidency, I will keep my eye out on what it is that he may be doing with his life and the difference he'll make in a positive way for our country. Something else, because you know, sometimes when I am in private company, I feel comfortable with you, for example. A different side of me does come out. I have a rather, I don't even know what to call it. People don't see the full of me, let's put it that way. Yes, I am all those things that people describe. I am bookwormish, I love books, I read, I study, I learn about everything to the nth degree. But when I'm in private company, I am a bit witty, especially when I have a little more of this. And perhaps that's a quality that Mrs. Madison saw in me. I have been called anything from the most unsociable creature on this entire earth to a withered little apple John to a contemptible little blackguard. I will not say. Those people will remain anonymous. But I must say that I wouldn't describe myself as such. I am not standoffish, except that I'm serious about what I do, especially in the position that I hold now. As your chief magistrate, there is so much that we need to do to make the United States a world power and keep it so. We already fought our second war for independence. We're enjoying a time of relative peace now, and we certainly want to keep that going. And as I exit my administration, I hope that I can leave our country in a position where we can continue that. What else could I speak of? Well, go ahead, sir. You seem to be quite inquisitive.
Well, I'm curious. Your travels, I wondered whether when you went north to Lake Champlain, whether you might have had a chance to travel on one of the new steamboats. Mr. Fulton launched his steamboat on the Hudson, must have been within the last 5 years or so, and I wondered whether you would have a chance to travel on that machine.
My goodness, sir. Well, that would have been 1791. So I'm not quite sure who it is that you're referring to, but perhaps the scientist next door has some kind of a vision about the science that is being developed for that kind of travel. Yes, ma'am.
May I query you, sir? You brought up Daniel Shays. And it brought to mind some of our earlier conversation. The President and I have had the opportunity to spend a few moments in excellent conversation. But now as you move forward, as you bring the voices of the people, change the Articles of Confederation, come up with new, perhaps one might call them bills of right, have you at all been influenced by the situation of Daniel Shays, who isn't able to pay his taxes, and how Mr. Franklin's speaking about finding that equanimity of bringing the disparate states into a nation where there are these contentious problems, who has not. Are these some of the driving questions that have brought you gentlemen to reconvene and reconsider some of the earlier documents that were written, and if so, in what way, sir?
Well, I would say, madam, that I would be a strict constitutionalist, because I believe that that document was so well researched and discussed at the Delegates Convention in Philadelphia, that it describes as best as we can what a large republic can be, and how it can represent the best course of action to govern not only the governed, but to govern ourselves in the government. So yes, in fact, perhaps you might take the opinion that I do see a progression in time, and as some of the Federalist Papers, as Publius was writing the Federalist Papers, you know, there was the talk about the fact that a republic was necessary in order to account for everyone's opinion and to distribute it through a balance of power and a representative government. So there will be a progression. In fact, some people have criticized me. What I'm trying to say now is that I've changed my mind and that I cannot stay the course with a particular course of action. Well, I proffer it is because that I consult with my cabinet members, for example, do so a little bit differently than some of my predecessors. I do not hold cabinet meetings, for example. I will go visit them individually and find out what their opinions are. They are all learned men, and they are all going to have different shades of the picture. I will take all that information in, I will bring it to my desk, and I will think it over and come to a conclusion. And if I need to change a previous decision for the good of the country, I shall do so. And if some people think that that is fickle or finicky, I proffer to you that it is simply a progressive attitude. I hope that answers your question.
Oh, very well, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Janet, thank you. Well, you know that sometimes people don't think I'm much of a conversationalist, so we have a little bit of dead time. And sometimes I'm also like the acoustics of the room. It keeps the sound in, so I don't have to speak very loudly. But I'm not heard of. I'm not one for great oratory, but I am a man of reason, and I do my homework, and I study very, very deeply into issues and matters that are important, that I feel, to the country.
What do you feel are the two most important accomplishments you've made thus far in your office?
My goodness, I don't know if I've put thought exactly to that. Well, I have two administrations, almost two full administrations to think of right now. Well, you cannot discount our second war for independence. And I must say to you that even though the result technically was status quo ante bellum, we can view it as a victory here in our country. Because, quite frankly, madam, and you can quote me on this, the war was necessary in order to protect and vindicate our independence. So I had to ride on the field of battle. We had to accept the British on our soil. We had the burning of the federal city. We had all that to contend with. And it was a difficult time because the administration was not at its best. In other words, our fighting men and our generals, we were at a juncture between men of experience but not modern means, and young guns, Henry Clay and the Warhawks as they called them, and John Calhoun, who led them from South Carolina, who advocated strongly for war, but we could not we could not come through, you know, but we did obtain the Treaty of Ghent. And at the status quo antebellum situation, we could get the Indians to stop attacking the forts out in Ohio country and such. So when a country is at war and you are able to retain your status and your identity on the world stage, I would think that that might be what I feel is my greatest accomplishment thus far.
Okay, thank you.
I'm searching my brain. One thing I would like to say, you have seen Mr. Jefferson, yes?
Yes.
Do you understand the depth of our friendship? Do you understand the depth, I'm sorry, of our friendship?
I don't think
It has been 40 years, you see. I first met Mr. Jefferson October of 76, I do believe. And even though we hear the bell, I do want you to understand this. Mr. Jefferson and I have shared a mutual confidence and a cordial friendship upon which there has been no interruption or diminution over any instance for any moment in time. So I say to you that you are in highly esteemed company tonight, and I must say in turn that I as well am in your esteemed company. And with that, I say adieu.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
What a
And
pleasure.
it's been a privilege to meet our citizens of the Massachusetts state, especially in Boston. Do come and visit us next summer, Montpelier. If it's during the term of the presidency, you must come to one of the Wednesday evening drawing rooms.
Thank you.
You will have such a good time. I guarantee it. And if Mrs. Madison was not so engaged with Madam Eustis downstairs, I'm sure she would engage you in quite more.
Thank you.
Warm in here, isn't it?
Thank you for coming. It was a pleasure to meet you all.
Indeed.
Of course, Mr. Franklin is